Okay, we'll call the July 12th Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority board meeting to order. I don't have any items from the chairman. Are there any citizens to be heard? If not, we'll move to item 4, which is the approval of the minutes of the Copta board meeting held on June 7th.
Move approval.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Are there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Moving to item 5 is the consent docket. There are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 items on the consent docket. Any of the trustees want to pull any of the items for individual consideration? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent docket?
Move approval.
Second. There's a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Move on into the individual items. Item A is a resolution to waive competitive bidding and approve a single source purchase of ski data software and hardware from Weatherby Electric to include an upgrade to the existing ski data parking access revenue and control systems at an estimated cost of $890,278 in hardware and software updates, $95,000 each year for software support and updates, estimated at $500,000 for parts, supplies, and services from 2019 through 2024. Jason?
Okay. Corey Hubert is going to talk about this item if we could.
I snuck up here on you. Good morning, everyone. So the just over $400,000 will be spent on about half of the $890,000 will be spent on hardware, new ticket dispensers, new ticket acceptors when you exit the garage, some motherboards for all of the cash accepting devices in the lanes and the pay on foots, new computers for the cashiers and office staff, and then a new server. The rest of it will be software applications and support. Some of the software benefits will be we'll be able to email or text season ticket holders, event tickets, an online reservation system so the public can go and reserve a parking space in a parking garage and pay in advance. Customers will be able to make payments for their monthly accounts online. Folks that buy validation tickets for their customer base can do that online and print at home, and looking forward to offering those benefits to the customers.
And as we move forward with the new garage will have the same technology and coordinate with
Correct.
The system
Absolutely.
that we're upgrading.
Yes. Any other questions?
I think this is a real good move to keep us technically up to date.
Thank you.
Something we need to do, so thank you.
Thanks.
So is there a motion to approve item number 1? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, item B is the approval of a request for proposals for transportation providers for an Arnold Family Foundation Transportation Innovation Grant Project entitled Increasing Successful Foster Care Parent-Child Reunification in Oklahoma County through innovative transportation delivery with an estimated cost of $60,000 for the term August 1st through June 30th of 2020. Jason?
So this item here is really kind of the next step in setting up that specialized transportation program that's described in this memo. If you'll recall, the trust previously approved a grant agreement with the CTAA. If you'll recall, the CTAA, the OTA and Cotpa basically made a joint application for this private foundation grant. And so that agreement has been executed, and now the next step in the process is to solicit proposals for transportation providers, and we're optimistic. We're hoping we'll be able to select, multiple transportation providers to help us provide those mobility connections to participants in this foster care program. Those transportation providers will help us get the participants to, their designated appointments, and hopefully in most cases be able to connect those participants to the closest fixed bus route to be able to get to their appointment. So anyway, with approval of this item, we'll issue an RFP, and then we will bring back hopefully a contract to the trust in August, awarding, again, we're looking hopefully to have multiple providers for those transportation services. The estimated cost is $60,000, but worth noting here that this will be reimbursed, of course, from that Arnall grant.
Okay, great. This is something called maybe microtransit in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's actually somewhat of a microtransit
public transportation
program, exactly.
Yep. Targeted to a specific audience. Okay, is there a motion to approve item B? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And then item C was a tandem piece to that we're going to go ahead and pull today because we will have time to approve it at our August meeting. So item C has been pulled. Item D then is the approval of change order number 5 for the Santa Fe parking garage white box and tenant improvements for $12,165. Corey?
One of the smaller change orders, what we're doing in this change order is instead of one gigantic louver to exhaust air and whatnot out of the space, we were forced to convert it to 3 smaller louvers and install some support beams. Another item in the change order is adding an electric door hardware, and then the lion's share of the change order is some fire-resistant paint. We found some wood in the garage used in previous projects that couldn't be removed, and it was more cost-effective to add some paint over the wood to make it safe. Total change order, with the total change order of, we will be just under $19,000 over budget, or 0.65% over budget for the entire project at this point. And this change order will add a total of 5 days. So we're looking at the end of July, towards the end of July before we're done.
For the total project? So this will probably be the last change order? Probably.
We're actually working on one for August 2nd,
okay.
But I'll be able to show you some pictures later in this hour to show the good work.
Okay, good. Is there any questions for Corey? If not, is there a motion to approve item D?
Move the item. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Item E is amendment number 8 to the joint contract for architectural services with Oklahoma City Water Utility Trust and Frankfurt Short Brugia to provide for design, plans, and specification, bidding, construction, administration, and inspection, and as-built services for the remodel of interior space within the lease space at the Sheridan Walker parking garage. Jason? Corey.
Long story short, water needed more space for some equipment, computer equipment. So they purchased what was referred to as the laundry room a year or two ago from us. Didn't know we had a laundry room back in the day. But anyways, no cost to Coppa on this amendment, strictly paperwork so that, because we're a part of the contract with the FSB. So no cost to us whatsoever.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve item E?
Move approval.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Item F is the approval of professional service agreement with Walker Parking Consultants and Engineers for parking consulting services for July 12th, 2019 through July 22nd, 2022. Corey?
Sorry, I thought I had an item in front of this one. We went out and did an RFP for a parking consultant services to come in and do an operational and financial audit. We did one a couple of years ago. We had 4 firms, 2 were shortlisted, and Walker Parking was chosen. It's their hope, if we get approval today, to start next week.
Jason?
Just wanted to mention that Vice Chairman Sepner served on that committee, so we appreciate your work on that. And we also had, I think, a real strong committee in evaluating that. We also had participants from the City Auditor's Office just sit in on some of those interviews. So just wanted to recognize, staff and the other support we received from other city departments, and I think what was a pretty thorough selection process, and which is very, very important to us moving forward to have, a strong, independent auditor that can take a look at, finances and the operations and make recommendations. So we're compliant with best practices moving forward. So.
And there will be an audit here this fall that will receive a report, and then this contract also includes a second audit in 2022.
Right.
2021.
It has to be completed before June 30th, 2021. One thing that I omitted, my apologies, through contract negotiations with Walker, we added to the technology review. So they will be looking at the possibilities of, they'll provide a report that will help us out in making decisions on implementing the Pike Pass as a media to get in and out of the garage for monthly parkers, and enhance some of the review of our technology being used.
And the difference between the 2 audits, one will audit our system currently, and the second one will audit our system, including the new convention center garage.
And all the upgrades, yes.
Are there any questions or comments? If not, we'll go ahead and ask for a motion to approve item A.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, for ratification of claims and payroll for vendors, payroll and vendor claims for a period from June 4th to June 25th, 2019. Are there any comments or questions? If not, is there a motion to approve claims and payroll?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll move into our reports. We have, first report is the Streetcar Report. Jesse? Oh, wait, did I miss the financial reports?
Yes,
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
3 of us here, Councilman Greenwell, Candy, and I.
You wouldn't have let me miss that. So I guess we'll move on into the financial reports. This would be the Copta schedule of revenue and expenses, budget to actual for the 11 months ending May 31st. Jason?
Yep, so I have just a few brief comments on the financials. We can start on page 2. So this is our budget to actual for transportation operations through May 31st. So even though we're into the new fiscal year, we're still reporting for the previous fiscal year. But with transportation operations, it's been a pretty consistent story through 11 months in that our revenues are essentially on target. we are, 250,000 less than what we had projected through 11 months. However, most of that is attributable to variances in just federal grant reimbursements, which we've talked about several times throughout the year. And then again, just consistently coming in under target on our fare box revenues. Any variation from the revenues, though, is more than offset by savings and expenditures, with most of our savings and expenditures coming from our personnel services. So through 11 months of the fiscal year, you can see there where our revenues actually exceed our expenses by about $1.1 million. So we don't expect any, dramatic changes as we finish out the fiscal year with our transportation operations. So we should be in good shape on budget. On page 3, this is our parking operations, and again, a lot of consistency in month to month, in that really looking at the revenues, we are through 11 months about 144,000 under what we had projected, and that variance or that shortfall is attributable to less monthly contract revenue than what we had budgeted. And again, I know we've mentioned that before with losing some significant contract parkers in our system. That's also reflected in our vacancy rate that's included in the parking report that you have. But when you look down at the expenditures, our operating income, or I should say our revenues, are still well in excess of our expenses, even with that shortfall on revenues. Overall, through 11 months, we're showing revenues in excess of expenses of $2.5 million. However, I would like to point out that the expenditure line for parking garage operations there, that's reflected at $1.7 million, there's actually 2 outstanding Republic invoices through the end of May that are not reflected in these numbers. So if we added kind of those expenses incurred actually through May to that number, we'd be closer to we'd be closer to about 2.1. So that's going to pull our operating income down slightly, closer to about $2 million. But again, looking towards the end of the fiscal year, our revenues should be well in excess of our expenses there. Looking over on the river cruises operation, again, just a couple of comments. Probably direct your attention really to that operating income line. Our revenues are in excess of our overall expenditures by about $90,000. We do, though, have some pretty significant variances in some of our fare revenues. You can see the general fares as well as the charters are coming in under budget. And I know Jeannie will probably address some of the trip cancellations in her report that she gives to the trust today. But suffice it to say, in May, we had an extraordinary amount of cancellations, which directly affects our revenue. And, of course, that's due to really the extreme amount of rain we received. Makes it hard to operate on the river. Looking at Spokie's operations, again, not to get into too many of the details, but revenues are in excess of expenditures still on Spokie's. Of about $38,000 through 11 months of the fiscal year. Again, I've mentioned this before, but just as a reminder, the bike share revenue is showing to be about $46,000 less than what we had budgeted, and a lot of that is attributable to the fact that we budgeted some sponsorship revenue into that line, and we do not still have a sponsor for Spokie's. And then I'll finish up on page 6 here with Streetcar Operations. I had mentioned, I believe it was in the previous trust meeting, could have been 2 months ago, but we've been monitoring the expenses pretty closely on the Streetcar Operations in anticipation of probably having to do a budget amendment. I mean, this was our first year of really, creating this budget for operations. We had some expenses that came in above budget with regards to snow and ice removal and basically our emergency preparedness operations, where we have to keep operators out to run the streetcars throughout the night to clear the ice. So there were some expenses like that, and then in addition we had basically just some security expenses that came in over budget. So where we're at with the streetcar is we do now have our invoices from Herzog through June. So we are looking at, those final expenses and fully anticipate bringing a budget amendment to the trust in August. It's probably going to be in the neighborhood, of a couple $100,000. But again, we're still kind of finalizing some of those expenses and doing some negotiations with Herzog on that.
Okay, are there any questions about the financial reports? Any of the sections of it? If not, is there a motion to receive the financials? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, now we'll move into our program reports. And currently, this month, we're going to hear from first the Streetcar Report. And Jesse.
Good morning. Everyone had a great 4th of July. Before I jump in, just wanted to share a quick story. So one of my favorite things to do is to take my laptop, jump on the streetcar, log into the Wi-Fi, and then ride around a couple of loops answering emails. Gives you a chance to get a little quiet time, right? So last time I was doing that, it was right after the 4th of July, and there, I tend to eavesdrop a little bit while I'm doing that, also listening to people that are riding along. There was this woman there named Susan, and she had her brother and sister-in-law riding with her. She lives downtown. She was talking about how she uses a streetcar all the time. But what was cool about it was she was taking them basically on a tour of downtown Oklahoma City, right? So she was, here we come up on the Scissortail Park and talking about the new convention center and how she uses it to go eat in Midtown. And then, she's understood how she can walk that extra block and short-circuit the Midtown area and just come straight to downtown. So it's just really cool to be able to listen to somebody, being able to share her experience of riding the streetcar. So I wanted to share that with all of you this morning. So I'll jump right into the presentation.
Did you get her name? Because maybe we could make a video of
I know, right? Yep.
Use
Yeah,
it for a
I should have.
commercial. You could pay her a small promotional fee. Susan, if you're out there, call me.
Right? Yeah. I'll start doing that. I'll have a sign-up list with me when I go next time. Yeah. No, it's great. It's kind of fun, honestly. Just get to listen to people talk about how awesome it is. So I'll jump right into my report here. So the past couple of months, I've been talking a lot about transit signal prioritization and implementing our most recent phase, phase 3, how it's improved our route times. This is a quick little illustration of kind of how that works. I've shown videos and stuff, but this is more kind of simplified to show how it works. So there's an emitter on the streetcar. As the streetcar enters into basically the geofence zone, it starts sending that signal to the transmitter or the detector that's located on the traffic pole, and then it interrogates that signal by the phase selector, and then it starts inputting the train signal, basically making it so that the streetcar can get a green light and travel through that intersection without having to stop, right? So we've continued working with traffic engineering and traffic operations for the additional signal prioritization. So at this time, we've installed 13 TSP units at intersections. And so next couple of slides, I want to walk through basically, where we've installed those and give you a little more detail on some of those. So our pilot phase, phase 1 implementation, as we were starting to run test cars in the downtown Bricktown area doing simulated service, we noticed that we weren't quite meeting what we expected on our route times. So we looked at installing the Opticom. And so in November, we installed our pilot phase. And so our first intersections were in Bricktown. And so we did Sheridan, Mickey Mantle, Sheridan, Oklahoma, Sheridan, Harvey, and then Reno, Broadway. And so we saw pretty significant improvements with that. And so quickly we started looking at our next phase. And so we were able to implement phase 2 in February, just a few short months after starting service. And so our first one that we looked at installing was Harvey and Northwest 4th Street. And so this intersection we installed the Opticom not necessarily for speed, but more for safety, right? So you may have heard the stories of the streetcar in Portland that was at the top of one of their hills. They lost the braking mechanism and they rolled all the way to the bottom of the hill. Luckily, nobody was hurt, right? So 4th Street is our one hill that we have in Oklahoma City. And so we installed Opticom there so that we never actually have to stop at the top of that hill and take that risk. So we were able to mitigate that risk out by installing Opticom there. And then the next 4 were basically, we looked at Robinson and we realized that we were getting constant red lights as we were going down Robinson, and so we wanted to create that corridor. And so our next 4 intersections, Robinson 6, Robinson and McGee, Robinson and Kerr, and Robinson and Main, were mostly done for speed. And so I've said it 1,000 times now, little insider tip, if you want to get down Robinson a little faster, jump in behind a streetcar because we get signal prioritization and we can get down Robinson pretty quickly. And so then our next phase, phase 3, so we just wrapped that up, June of 2019 here. And so again, obviously when we're doing this, the first thing we're looking at is safety and then speed. And so the first intersection that we looked at was Robinson and Sheridan. And so this kind of has a little bit of safety and speed built into it. So the streetcars that's coming southbound on Robinson, making that turn on the Sheridan, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, we also have the Bricktown loop that's coming to that intersection also. So as the streetcar is coming to that intersection, Opticom can work as a check-in and check-out. And so we're able to allow the streetcar to go through that intersection and check out and get that cycle going again quicker for the Bricktown car that's also entering in that intersection. The next one is Sheridan Ek Gaylord. So we've been experiencing some intermittent faults with the streetcar traveling through Sheridan Ek Gaylord. The operators can travel all day and be getting green lights, and this was before the Opticom, obviously, but can be traveling all day, getting green lights, and then as they're approaching the intersection the next time, it would start turning red on them. And so we wanted to eliminate the possibility of us running a red light, right? So this intersection, Sheridan Ek Gaylord, we were able to install the Opticom there and be able to pull that geofence all the way back to our stop at the Century Center. And so essentially, as soon as the streetcar comes into Century Center, it checks into that intersection, and we're able to get through that entire corridor all the way through Ek Gaylord, all the way to the stop in Bricktown with green lights. So we don't stop at Broadway and we don't stop at Ek Gaylord, and we're able to get all the way through there. All right, so the next 2, Hudson and Park and Broadway and 6th, were mostly for speed. I do want to draw your attention to Broadway Avenue and Northwest 6. So that intersection was actually a relocation. So the Sheridan and Hudson intersection, the traffic signals are down, and so we took that Opticom unit that was installed there and we relocated it to Broadway and 6th for speed. So that's the long version of Opticom units. Yes?
It sounds like a Power Rangers episode. I have more of those dad jokes. By how much did this improve frequency, and does it vary per like stop or route in terms of, I don't know, where are we at with this?
You guys are so good at segues. Here we go. So with the implementation of all 3 phases, we've seen pretty significant improvements, right? So prior to opening, prior to our phase 1, we were seeing a 55-minute round trip, 15-minute headways with our 15-second dwells, and 19-minute headways on our off frequency, right? So with phase 1, we improved our round trip time from 55 to 52 minutes, and we were able to include a minute-and-a-half layover. So that's essentially allowing our operators to basically use the restroom, more or less, right? So beforehand, we were, if someone needed to take a break, we would run another operator out there, they would jump in the car, and they would take off with it while that operator went and used the restroom. So now we have a little bit of time built into that. With phase 2, this is where we saw most of our improvement with that implementation down Robinson. So with phase 2, we went from 52-minute round trip to 45-minute round trip, and we're able to increase that layover to 3 minutes. And then with phase 3, we didn't see a huge amount of round trip improvement because most of those were for safety, and we kind of focused right there on that Sheridan section. So we went from 45 minutes to a 44-minute round trip. Yes.
Is there a phase 4, or are you planning on?
There is a phase 4. Yeah. So we're like I said, we're working with traffic ops and traffic engineering, and so we've worked with traffic engineering to basically develop a way of doing business, right? So we went out and we timed how long the streetcar is delayed at every intersection, and we did that. Basically, we did it in the morning, midday, at night, several times. We took all of that information, put it into a graph. Basically assigned weights to it, right? So if it was a little bit longer delay, then it had a little bit more weight to it. And then we also had TrafficWare, who basically comes in and does all the programming for all the signals. They gave some recommendations. So our next phase, we're looking at essentially creating a corridor on Northwest 10th. So streetcar, if there's nobody at the platforms or anything like that, as soon as it goes to the roundabout, they can travel all the way to Robinson and be able to make that turn on the southbound Robinson. So there's going to be 3 there. We're also looking at 4th and Hudson, and that's more of a safety implementation there because the streetcar, as it's coming north on Hudson, making that right-hand turn on 4th, we're able to get that green light right after we pick up passengers, and we don't have to wait for the possibility of cars trying to make a left-hand turn, traveling southbound and turning essentially into us, right? So, yeah, there's definitely a next phase. We've submitted that information to Public Works and Traffic Operations and Engineering to get their sign-off, and as soon as we hear back from them, we're moving forward with getting the proposals together. Yeah. Great questions. All right, so some of the fun things that we get to do. So the CVB, the Conventions Visitor Bureau, they were developing a video and they wanted to use the streetcar as a part of that video, and so we recently had them out and they were going around using the stops and people entering and exiting the streetcar to be part of that video. So this is definitely some of the fun things that we get to do. So we recently hosted the Oklahoma Expanded Learning Network STEAM group, and Councilwoman Nikki Nice, they used the streetcar to go out and explore downtown Oklahoma City. We were able to give them a little information of how the streetcar works, those types of things, and again, this is some of the fun things that we get to do with the streetcar. So you may remember the Dead Center Film Festival was in town in June. So one of the things that we did was for exchange of media exposure, we were able to allow all the people that had the all-access pass holders to receive complimentary streetcar service. So basically, if you had an all-access pass, that was your ticket to ride the streetcar. And so that allowed people to basically go from one event to the other using the streetcar exactly as it was intended. Yeah, so this is another thing that was pretty awesome. And Kristen and Michael's group were able to work out the negotiations there. So it was fun to see everybody downtown using the streetcar. I got to participate in the Oklahoma Transit Association Leadership Academy. So one of the things that was part of that academy was how to give presentations. And so they talked about, at the beginning of your presentation, try to share a story. So living example, I'm trying to implement what I learned, right? So so this was pretty awesome. We got to do this. This was a 3-day process. We were there. We were learning about, presentations and things like that. But we also had Secretary Gatz from ODOT come and visit with OTA. And we were able to talk to him about some of the upcoming things that they've got going on too. Don't forget, Third Friday, so we've got our next Third Friday coming up, free rides on transit, July 19th. Put it in your calendars. Total ridership for June, an amazing number, right? 48,000. So one of the things that we saw that helped create that bump was we had the Beta Conference. They were in town for nearly a week, and it was high school and middle school students coming to town for the convention, and they used the streetcar a lot, and you can see the big bumps there. So Saturday, June 15th, Friday, June 21st, those Saturdays, we saw a huge increase there. So we loved seeing that. And so one of the things that we're doing, and we have been doing, is working with the CVB to make sure that whenever they're selling packages to conventions, to make sure to remind them that we have a streetcar now to get you around, to get you from your conventions to your hotels and to restaurants and those types of things. So we hope to see more convention goers riding the streetcar also. Ridership by month, so you can see June, like I said, was a pretty big month for us. It exceeded our expectations, and we love seeing that, and we hope to see more of it.
Is June, is it really because of the convention?
No, not exclusively. I mean, it's...
You look at Monday, the 17th of June, had 3,000 riders on it. Monday is usually not a 3,000 rider
usually not
day. So conventions help.
It had a big help. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, huge help. It's not exclusively the conventions. It's, like I said before, it's people getting used to the system. It's people learning how to use it. It's the warm weather, people getting out. There's a ton more events going on downtown with the warmer weather, but we did see a huge bump with the convention, yes.
When I attended the Congress for New Urbanism, and they did, in Louisville, they didn't really have that downtown circulated the way that we do, but they had events across the city. Like not just events, but like literal the seminars were in this hotel or that hotel, and you would walk from place to place. And so I'm listening about that Dead Center thing, and that makes a lot of sense because you're having films at different places and in this conference. So that convention center is actually going to be a really big deal. I'm guessing I'm not saying anything you all
Yeah, we're super excited. Yeah, super excited, yeah. We're ready for the park, we're ready for the convention center, the hotel, all of it, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so ridership by month. So fare compliance, so we've talked about this several times. So we're obviously tracking our fares and seeing, tracking our fare compliance. And so in June, we checked a little over 3,000 tickets. We had 105 invalid tickets, so our fare compliance rate in June was 3.5%. So it's well within our range, and it's great to see that, yeah. And so like I've said before, Oklahoma riders, they will not get on the streetcar without a ticket. There's been several times where we're like, it's fine, we'll wait, go ahead, jump on. And they're like, no, I got to get my ticket. So it's pretty awesome. Total blockages. So last month we talked about this a little bit. I didn't have the numbers at that last presentation, but I do now. And so April 26th, we were able to implement Mr. Fairbrush's brilliant idea of putting the wording down on the ground at all of our parallel parking spots. And so we knew leading up to the Memorial Marathon that we wanted to make sure that we had all of those spots painted. Corey's group did a great job of making sure that we met that deadline. And so, because we knew that we were going to have a lot of out-of-towners, and we wanted to make sure that that was very clear to make sure you park behind the line, right? So, January, February, March, and April, we were well over 100 blockages per month, and each blockage on average is about 5 minutes. Our longest blockages are usually if there's emergency vehicles on the tracks. They tend not to move, even for streetcar, right? So on April 26th, we had all of our paint markings down, and you can see just the significant improvement of blockages along the route. We went from 116 in April all the way down to 58 in the month of May and 53 in June, so it's huge. One of the things that's kind of cool, and I meant to include it in this presentation, was on Twitter, Cincinnati. So you remember me saying a couple of months ago that we had the Cincinnati, basically the Cincinnati Jesse was in town, and we walked around, we were looking at the paint markings on the ground. He loved the idea. They went back, they've started implementing it now. And so if you check their Twitter, they've posted recently that they actually have a contest of get to pick which color we use throughout the system and stuff. So, but it's awesome to see that being implemented in other streetcar systems because it was so successful here. Streetcar stop performance. So kind of fun little thing, right? You can sit there and see which streetcar stop is doing the best. So as of right now, the Ballpark, Myriad Gardens, East Bricktown, Century Center, and Memorial Museum are our top 5 streetcar stops based on ridership, basically based on boardings. So our streetcars are able to track how many people get on at each stop, and so we're able to put numbers to that. And so we do see Century Center, the Memorial Museum and the Arena stop. They sit there and go back and forth about who's on top there. But as of this month, Memorial Museum won out.
I think it's really interesting that the Scissortail Park stop is right there in the middle, considering the Scissortail Park isn't open yet.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I assume it's going to quickly get to the top once
Right.
everything opens, yeah. All right, that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Just one. How far does the streetcar have to be from the traffic signal before the remitter can trigger a change?
Right, so we can actually adjust that, right? So we can make it where it can be 300 feet, or we can pull it all the way back to 1,000, 1,500 feet. Yeah, we can adjust that.
Great. Well, so the reason why you wouldn't have it at 1,000 feet is, are you not able to direct it to a particular street's traffic signal? Meaning if there's one right after another, when you remit it, does it hit both of them?
Yeah, so the technology has to be there first, right? So if say for Broadway, if the thought was, well, we could install it all the way at Broadway and 8th and be able to pull it all the way back to 4th Street and basically make a corridor, right?
Right.
If the technology is there where the signals could talk to each other, we could do that, where the peer-to-peer technology is there, and it's not there throughout all the signals throughout downtown. So it's kind of one of the reasons why we have to make sure we work with traffic engineering and traffic operations, because we don't know everything that's inside those traffic boxes. And so we work with them, we go out and do studies and make sure that we're coordinating with them. Yeah, it's a great question.
Okay, so Jason, with respect to rapid bus transit, will the same concept be used in terms of being able to coordinate traffic signals for the BTR?
Right. We're going to be looking at traffic signal priority, and then also through some traffic studies, we may end up even implementing some of the, well, on the streetcar system, it's the train to wayside communications, but basically giving some exclusive left turns to the bus rapid transit route and at a couple of different key intersections. So yeah, a lot of what we've learned from streetcar we'll be applying to BRT and really hopefully eventually even into the fixed route system.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It seems like it would be applicable, even our just traditional bus system, because there are some instances where if the bus is trying to turn at a particular intersection or something like that, it could certainly come into play and be helpful.
Yep.
Do we have, just building on that, do we have examples across the country where they've used this sort of technology on a fixed route bus system? And what do we see in terms of frequency results or increases?
Yeah, I mean, there's many examples. The one I'm most familiar with, and talking with the FTA just recently about some options for enhancing our fixed route system, they directed me to Houston. Houston has done some extensive traffic signal priority, which I think makes sense when you consider the Houston traffic and such. But yeah, so we'll be I'm optimistic we'll be able to look to our neighbors to the south for some best practices. But yeah, there's a lot of systems that have implemented traffic signal priority with just their fixed route system.
Jesse, when there is a streetcar stop right ahead of the intersection that has signal prioritization, it doesn't hold it while it stops for passengers getting on and off.
We can program it to hold it, yeah, so we can put in a certain amount of, basically like a timer on it. And so if we know that we see a lot of passengers boarding at that stop, we can increase that time to make sure that even while we stop and board and offload passengers, that it maintains that green. So
for the
as soon
entire
as we're
stop.
done, we can take off. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions for Jesse? No, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to move on to the parking system report. Corey, good to see you again.
Tired of seeing me? So really going to focus on the UCO project that is wrapping up. Here's some of our concept pictures from quite some time ago, I think about 2 years ago. Inside, if you were facing north and on the west side of the main property, you can see a little corridor and some classrooms, and then classrooms. Here you are in that same corridor. You can see the classrooms on the right, the glass, obviously, we're still building. Inside one of the classrooms, those are cabinets sitting in there and some HVAC stuff. On the east side of the classrooms, looking south, just a hallway of incubator spaces. Those are small offices on the left. Another picture of the same hallway, classrooms on the right, incubator offices on the left. Sorry for the darkness of the pictures, but we didn't have power in the area at that point, or lights, I should say. Here's where the little radio station will work, and those windows look south into the courtyard elevator area. And then our new convention center, you can see a lot of demo work going on. That picture's today. We're digging down. We did find a hot spot. We found there's some tanks down there on the southeast side. We do not know what's in those tanks as of yet, but we found lots of foundations. And so far we're on schedule for the convention center. Bids have gone out. We've had a mandatory pre-bid meeting. July 27th, we will have bids due, and then we're hoping to be up here next month asking for an award for the garage. Couple of projects, obviously, the convention center, parking consultants, we'll get that audit underway next week. They intend to be on site next week, starting their audit. 100 North Walker placed an emergency generator on the roof of the Arts District garage. That's coming along. It was lifted up there a week or two ago over the weekend. And then our downtown parking management study is continuing on its process. And starting next week, we'll be placing a major order for the SCADATA equipment. The SCADATA equipment can take 6 to 8 weeks to get here, and then approximately 6 to 8 weeks to install. Hoping to collapse that time down a little bit. Let you know, next Tuesday we'll be celebrating the 84th anniversary of the world's first parking meter installed in Oklahoma City on what is now Main and Robinson. Carl McGee invented the meter to solve the parking problem. Retailers loved it immediately after much resistance before the installation, and then by the 1940s, there were more than 140 across the United States. That's where it all started, the parking meters. That's it.
Thank you. Does anyone know, I didn't know that date, is the automobile, is it really by 1935 saturating the market that much, even during the Depression?
Contrary to popular opinion, I was not alive at that time, so I'm not aware, Councilman.
That's interesting.
Okay, are there any other questions for Corey? If not, thank you. The next report is the Oklahoma River Cruises and Spokies report. Jeannie.
Good morning. I have a friend with me here today. This is the new Dockless bicycle for Spokies. It's a Spokies Dash. It's a smart bike. You can lock it to any bike rack. Most bike racks, some of them are a little too short, but most of our bike racks are very accommodating for this bike. It has the rider interface is that little screen you see between the on the handlebars there. You just tap the screen, a code comes up, you use your cell phone. Of course, you've downloaded the app. There is a QR code on the bike, so you can download the app. You plug in that 6-digit code, and off you go. And you unlock the bike. The lock fits in the basket up there in the front. When you're done, just relock the bike. You'll get a text message that says your ride has ended. Thank you for riding Spokies. Answer our survey, please. And it's been very good. We've been very pleased with its performance and durability and the ridership that we've been getting from that bike. Another feature that it has is turn-by-turn directions. Use this in conjunction with the app on your phone, but then you can just look at the handlebars and it'll say, in 100 feet, turn left, that kind of thing, kind of directions you get with turn-by-turn directions on your phone. It'll actually be right in front of you on the screen. So we think that's a great feature. We hope at some point to actually have some tours, some cookie tours or brewery tours or things like that pre-built into the app so that you can people can explore downtown and actually direct them to places interesting to go. Just a few weeks ago, there was a group of, these are actually motorcyclists, but they wanted to do a bike tour with Ride Okc. So Ride Okc didn't have quite enough bicycles, so they contacted Josh and said, hey, I've got all these folks from Denmark that want to do a bike tour, and I don't have enough bikes. So he actually rented Spokies bikes, and they were able to complete the tour. And that was actually done on the very first day of Spokies Dash service on June 7th. So that was a great way to launch Spokies Dash. To help increase our ridership, we moved 2 of our, these are our classic bike stations. We moved 2 of those stations to a little more visible areas, areas closer to where we get ridership. Most of our ridership is tourists, visitors to Oklahoma City. We have some commuters, we have some annual members, but a good 80% are people visiting Oklahoma City and they're familiar with bike share systems. So we took the station that was at Elemental, we moved it to Santa Fe Station. We took the one that was at the National Memorial and moved it down to Riversport. At Riversport's a great location because people can check out a bike and ride up and down the river trails. Or they can go from the hotels in Bricktown and get down to Riversport via bicycle rather than walking or taking some other form of transportation.
So, Jeannie, how did the Dockless bikes get staged? It seems like the memorial is a place for tourists, too. Are we staging Dockless bikes in that area to compensate for the fact that we moved the docking station?
We're actually able to geofence specific areas of downtown. Josh typically geofences bike racks. So what we're able to do then is look at that data. Where were they checked out? What bike rack were they checked out of? And then again, we did, to satisfy our sponsors who help pay for these bikes, we have some at Page Woodson, we have them at Uptown 23rd, we have some in Film Row, because those were the areas where our sponsors wanted them staged. So we staged a few there to start with, and then we saw at these geofence bike racks, oh wait, this is where people are taking Dash. So then he started moving them around to the places where there was more ridership. But it's interesting to pull up the ridership, and there's a list of all the bike racks that he's geofenced. You can see exactly how many rides per day occur at each one of those.
How many new Dash bikes are there?
There are 25.
25.
Hey, Jeannie, I'm sorry to ask this, but so can you explain do we have two types of bikes currently? The traditional Spokies bike and then this new one?
Yes. We have the Spokies Classic, which is a dock-based, and then we have the Dash, which is a smart bike.
Okay, so the picture that's up on the screen now, which one is this?
These are the classic bikes.
Okay, and so that's a docking station?
Yes.
Okay. And do we have a picture of one of the newer ones that you don't have to dock? And it could be placed anywhere. Kind of like those scooters where you just pick them up wherever they happen to be, and you can drop them off wherever your trip ends.
Yes, though we do encourage people to lock them to a bike rack, any bike rack around the city. And we identify those, and we're working with B-Cycle right now. When you look at the app, you can see which bikes are Dash bikes and which are station bikes. The station bikes are blue, which identify the station and how many bikes are at that station. And then there's some kind of a light green bikes, and those are the Dockless bikes, and it tells you what you're looking at.
Okay, so when you rent a docked bike, are you supposed to return it to that same location?
No, you can return it to any station. We have 8 stations, so you can pick it up at, for example, the Riversport station. If you're staying in Bricktown, you can pick one up at the ballpark and dock it at Riversport, and your ride is ended.
Given the problems that we on the council have experienced with respect to the scooters, this seems like a much better alternative than those scooters.
It's much safer. It's more durable.
Right.
Scooters have a very short lifespan, just because of the way they're constructed and the way they're handled by the operator. These bikes are extremely durable. I can tell you one of our classic bikes was retrieved from the Bricktown Canal. A little bit of polishing and replacing pedals, and it was back on the street.
Right. Plus, people who ride bikes recognize they need to stay on the streets and not on the sidewalks. I mean, I think that's the biggest differential between those two forms of transportation.
That and the visibility. It's much easier to spot a cyclist than it is a...
Sure. Well, and you get exercise. Yep. On those scooters. You're just standing still. So we've got to find a way to promote these somehow. I know you do a good job with that, don't get me wrong, but I just see so many more benefits to the bicycles.
We do too.
Yeah.
Well, and again, to your point, when we, ULI and some of us attended the Congress for Urbanism, as I mentioned earlier, in Louisville, and unfortunately, as we were leaving from downtown to go, have some drinks, at a place that basically looked like the Pump, like how they converted like a garage. I believe they probably stole that idea from us. But one of our ULI leaders, in fact, she was on a scooter in a bike lane, like where they're supposed to be, but because the road wasn't paved well enough, she just hit, and I mean, it was bad. It was really, really bad. She had to go to the hospital. It was unconscious. Someone else hit a thing right at the same time. I haven't been on one of those scooters yet because there's just something that doesn't feel safe to me in the way that being on a bike does, and I know you know because you bike as well. And I don't know how old that makes me sound, but...
There was a study done by the CDC in Austin, and if you have a chance to look it up, it's very interesting about head injuries and accident rates on scooters versus bicycles.
Is it that much? I haven't seen this study. Is it that much more significantly increased on a scooter? I would guess.
Yeah.
Are the dockless bikes able to go outside of an area, or are they contained inside an area, or bells and whistles go off if they...
Pretty much. You get an alert. You're outside the area. You're outside a ridership area. Please return to the ridership area.
So it'll start blinking at you that you've...
It'll send you a message on your phone, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't
Does it
think the
give you
bike
that
actually-
annoying directional thing, return to the route, return to the route, return to the route? Not that I hear that a lot. But.
On this touch screen on the bike, it is giving alert that you're leaving the ridership area. Please return. You're welcome.
But that ridership area goes up to 23rd Street, did you say, or you've retrieved them that far?
Come here.
Expanded with these 25 bikes. Ridership area extends north.
This is Josh Font, General Manager for Spokies.
Hi. Thanks, Rick. So north as far as Paseo, so 30th and Walker. South as far as the river. So we've crossed the river to go to Wheeler. So it is possible to go to Wheeler and block it there while you're riding the Ferris wheel. East as far as the Health Science Center and Paige Woodson. They're one of our sponsors of bikes. And west as far as Plaza District, 16th and Indiana. If you download the B-Cycle app, it's super easy. QR code is on all our stations and on all the smart bikes. It'll show you the outline of that ridership area. And we can change that as we get more bikes. Currently with 25 bikes only, they're spread pretty thin over approximately 8 square miles of ridership area. And if we expand that area a lot, it increases our operational burden. So we've contained a pretty big area for 25 bikes.
Is there a plan to increase the number of bikes, dockless bikes?
We have a TAP grant, which we got a couple of years ago. We haven't spent yet. It's overseen by ODOT. So we're working with them on and trying to figure out what we're going to spend that grant on, whether we want more classic bikes, more dash smart bikes, or potentially electric bikes. It's our supplier, B-Cycle. They all have to be integrated, but they have an electric bike version as well that we're looking at. In other cities that have electric bikes, their ridership's 3 to 5 times higher when they're electric. So sometimes people are more comfortable on the electric bikes that don't want to exercise as much as
Yeah, David, some of us would like that.
Yeah, well, so the electric bikes, I guess you're saying electric powered.
electric power.
They're electric assist.
Pedal assist.
You stop pedaling, the motor stops.
I see.
So it's just to give you a little boost.
Yeah. Well, perhaps you could consider working like with restaurants, whether it's the Plaza District or Paseo, or even like the grill on the hill and down in Capitol Hill, and like one day a month, you coordinate with them to where a group, whether it's ULI or some group from downtown, rides together for lunch, and in an effort to try to promote the use of the bicycles. as well as promote that particular restaurant. Maybe there's some coordination you could do.
Great.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the river. First, I want to introduce John Rush. John is the new general manager for HMS Ferries. John's from Southern California, moved to Oklahoma exactly 8 years ago. He served 22 years in the Navy, joined the Navy, and was primarily stationed in San Diego. Following several deployments to the Middle East and abroad, he retired as a U.S. Navy chief from 1st Marine Division Camp Pendleton. He was a hospital corpsman assigned to the United States Marines in combat operations in Desert Storm, Operation Iraqi Freeman, and he is now general manager of HMS Ferries Oklahoma and manages Oklahoma River cruises. I'll also say that he has been a valuable asset in our triennial preparation by providing documentation for the Title VI and maintenance compliance. The man's a wizard when it comes to pulling things together. Great, so we welcome John. So this picture is from May 31st. The speed of the river at this point is 4,700 cubic feet per second. Draw your attention to this particular gate. It is fully closed, and there's debris building up on it, and there's water coming over it. This was at 4,700. At its peak, it was 10,300 cubic feet per second, and the river actually crested 3 feet above the gates. Obviously, we couldn't operate it at that level. So this was May with river level. The daily flow rate fluctuated between 514 and 10,300 cubic feet per second. Historical average normally only runs about 475, so we were above normal the entire month. We cannot operate above 1,800. So if you look at where the rate comes between the green line and the purple line, there were just only 6 days that we were able to operate in the month of May due to the high river flow. Yesterday I was at a women's transportation conference at Port of Catoosa, and with the release from Keystone and the flow rates on the Arkansas, they say it'll be late August before they'll be able to be back in operation. So we're fortunate that we're back in operation now, but it's obviously impacted a lot of services, having all that water coming down the river and coming into our drought state. So, consequently, ferry service riders took a huge decline. We were fortunate to get some fairly decent numbers on riders per service hour. I think people were just desperately looking for a time when we were actually running. But the total ferry service riders was a huge decline from prior years. Cancellations, 183 cancellations. As I say, we only ran about 6 days out of the entire month. And that's what I have for you.
Jeannie, when we get a second stop within, say, that lower basin where we would go across maybe to the Indian Cultural Center that's being built, would they be able to operate with a higher flow because it doesn't go through a lock, or are you still not able to because of that flow rate?
Yeah, that flow rate is the entire river.
So
yeah.
Even operating within one of the basins, it doesn't allow you to.
You know, a good example of that is in Mother's Day in May. We were able to operate. We just couldn't go through a lock.
Yeah.
So we went ahead and operated the service. We also did a couple of charters in May, which was fortunate because those are better revenue generators for us, and to be able to actually continue to provide that service was very helpful. So we can operate within, if we have, as you were saying, 2 stops within the same basin, it's very likely we would be able to. One of the biggest problems with high flow rate is even with that first gate at a closed, which remains closed so that we don't have an eddy that we have to fight coming out of the lock. When the flow rate is that high, I've seen video from Public Works of one of our boats trying to get out, and it just spins right around. So trying to come out at that kind of flow rate would just throw us right into the bank. So that's
Well, and I
key
think
reason.
with the debris that's in the river at those flow rates, you really risk damage to the boat, not only risk to the passengers, but long-term damage to the equipment too, that whether it's, just external damage or even to the motors. So I think it's advisable that they continue to let the experts and even the data dictate when it's safe to operate.
Yeah, our captains go out and do an assessment on the debris every morning before they go out and operate. One of the days that we operated, I was out with them, and we dodged entire pallets floating down the river. Every time we hit something with a prop, it's $1,500 to repair and replace. So it's just not worth it. So.
That makes sense. Any other questions for Jeannie? If not, thank you. Those are our reports. So is there a motion to receive our program reports?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, items from the trustees. James?
Yeah, just a shameless plug for July 31st when, I hope I'm not stealing your, are you going to talk? Nope. You go first.
No, please. Okay, so July 31st is when we are scheduled to present concept ideas for maps for transit projects. So be that morning at 9 a.m., July 31st. Here at City Hall.
Are you first on the agenda?
And yes, we're first on the agenda, so that could shorten your day a little bit if you're just there for the transit piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to add to that, I've been reviewing my notes from the city council campaign from the doors that I knocked, and walkability and homelessness in streets, that it was high up there, and so were schools, but public transportation was number one. 2,000 people I spoke to, and of that, the majority public transportation. So I'm really looking forward to your presentation.
That's great. David?
No, thank you.
Laura? Kenny? Okay.
I just want to express thanks to Jason and Jesse. I know you'll probably talk about it next month on July 4th and what all goes on down in Bricktown with the streetcar, but I know we had it was kind of a first time working through with the police department on setting up a safe movement of the streetcars in and out of the area around the fireworks show, and so it went off without a hitch, as I understand, and so I just want to thank you for your staff working with OCPD on that. Appreciate it.
Jason, do you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else for the trust, then we are adjourned. Thank you.